Hi, this is Carol again. This is my third processing tutorial on an LRGB image, and we've already processed the luminance and the RGB, and these are both those files opened up on the screen. They've both been registered to each other, so the stars should exactly fit over each other. So the first thing you need to do is select all and copy the luminance and paste it on top of the RGB. So if I switch the luminance layer on and off using this eye here, you can see that the stars exactly fit on top of each other, and that's because I registered them and cropped them in Registyle. So I'm going to now blend them together, and I'm dropping this menu down here and selecting luminosity. So you can see that you've got your luminance placed over the top of the colour, and you've got an LRGB image. But you can see that the luminance has slightly washed out the RGB, so we need to fix that. So I'm going to do Image, Adjust, Curves, and notice I'm just working on the luminance layer here. And I'm just, ignore that because that's those horrible corners. I'm just going to bring the slider in enough to darken the background, and it's taken that milkiness off it. Now if you look at the comparison between the luminance and the red, you will see there is so much more detail in the luminance. You've got all this nebulosity around here that doesn't show up in the RGB. So basically what you can do in RGB, and I quite often do this, is to do not a high pass filter, a filter, and I do a bit of dust and scratches. I don't do it very much, but it just helps to smooth the colour image out a little bit, because you've got all your detail in the luminance. So that's smoothed the colour out a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flatten that image so we can work on the whole thing, and I'm going to cut those horrible corners off now. Gone a bit too high, so I'm going to move it down a fraction. That's on the keyboard, and I'm going to crop. So now we have a combined LRGB image. We've got colour in the stars, we've got nebulosity around the actual nebula. I'm going to see if we can get any more out of it by stretching a little bit more in curves. I'm going to anchor the dark point down and the white point, and I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to go back into the history and have a look at the difference, and it has stretched it a bit. It might have washed the colour out a little bit. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go into something called lab color, and with lab color you go image mode and change to lab color instead of RGB. And if you go into your channels, you'll see you've got lightness A and B instead of RGB. Now the B channel affects the blue and the A channel affects the red. If you make sure that they're all lit up so you can see what you're doing. So I'm going to select the blue channel, and I'm going to try to make that blue nebula a better blue. Image, adjust, brightness and contrast, and slide this slider over, and you can see it's going more blue. Now we probably need to enhance that colour a bit more, but I won't go too far at this stage, and I'm going to just put the pink back in the red part of the nebula. So that's brightened that up a little bit more. and then I'm going to put it back to RGB mode. I'm going to now go into image, adjust selective colour, and I'm just going to see if I can enhance that blue there. I'm not sure if it's the cyan slider I need to move. Yes, that's made a bit of difference. And putting the yellow back to the other side's made a bit of difference. So I'm just going to play with the blue in selective colour as well and see what I get. I don't know whether it'll make any difference. We'll give it a try. I generally tend just to play around with these until I get a colour that I find pleasing. Now that is probably a much better blue, but we don't want to affect the sky background. So that's put the blue back in. So I think we have more or less completed that LRGB image. The only thing that I could comment on is the fact that my stars seem to be a bit burned out. I don't think it's the fault of the processing. I think it's probably more to do with not being very good data in the first place. But I don't do a huge amount of LRGB because I live in a light polluted location, so I didn't have I don't get a lot of time on LRGB, and I don't get I didn't get a lot of choice of images to choose from for this demonstration. So I think that's given you a pretty good demonstration on how to combine them. And I'm just going to save that as LRGB and hope I don't run out of time. Save.